Leonardo DiCaprio started as a kid actor eating dirt on a low-budget sitcom, and ended up becoming the most bankable dramatic actor of his generation. That transformation didn't happen overnight. It happened through 10 specific performances that each pushed him into completely new territory. We're about to track exactly how a teenager from Los Angeles became Hollywood royalty, one unforgettable role at a time. Over 3 decades, DiCaprio has earned over $7 billion at the global box office, collected 6 Oscar nominations before finally winning, and somehow managed to never phone in a single performance. But here's what makes his evolution truly epic. Every few years, he completely reinvents what a Leonardo DiCaprio movie even means. Starting with performance number 1, we go back to 1993 when nobody knew his name. DiCaprio played Eating Grape, a teenager with an intellectual disability in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. He was just 19 years old, surrounded by established actors like Johnny Depp, yet he managed to steal every single scene he appeared in. The role required him to completely abandon any trace of vanity or self-consciousness. Watch his fidgeting hands, the way his voice catches and breaks, how his mood swings feel less like acting choices and more like pure instinct. Roger Ebert called out DiCaprio specifically in his review, saying he deserved to win the Oscar that year. What made this performance revolutionary wasn't just the accuracy, it was the fearlessness. Most young actors protect their image, especially when building a career. DiCaprio did the opposite. He made himself vulnerable, childlike, completely dependent on others. The director Lasse Hallström initially thought DiCaprio was too good-looking for the part, and needed convincing through multiple auditions. The Academy noticed, making him one of the youngest supporting actor nominees ever. This wasn't method acting or showing off. This was behavior so specific and lived in that it announced the arrival of someone who understood character from the inside out. Performance number 2 came in 1996 with Baz Luhrmann's wild reimagining of Romeo and Juliet. Set in a modern Verona beach with guns instead of swords, but keeping all of Shakespeare's original dialogue, the film needed a Romeo who could be both poet and rock star. DiCaprio delivered both. He plays Romeo as earnest, impetuous, and combustible, someone whose romanticism can tip into righteousness in an instant. The film itself is a maximalist fever dream of MTV editing, neon gunfights, and ecstatic melodrama. The performance won him the Silver Bear for Best Actor at the Berlin International Film Festival, proving this wasn't just teen idol stuff but serious craft. Watch the Capulet party sequence or the gas station confrontation, and you'll see DiCaprio fusing youthful volatility with precise attention to Shakespeare's language, treating the verse as something lived in rather than museum grade. The film positioned him as a global pin-up just as he was about to embark on the juggernaut that would change everything. Which brings us to performance number 3, the role that made him a household name worldwide. Jack Dawson in Titanic wasn't just a character, it became a cultural earthquake. The penniless artist who wins his ticket in a poker game could have been a walking cliché, but DiCaprio found something deeper. He calibrated Jack's confidence perfectly, cocky enough to crash a first-class dinner, innocent enough to make you believe in the romance. Notice how he physically changes depending on who he's talking to, expanding his presence with the rich passengers, then shrinking it with Rose to create intimacy. The numbers tell only part of the story. Titanic tied the all-time record with 14 Oscar nominations and won 11, including Best Picture and Director. It became the first film to cross $1.8 billion worldwide, eventually sailing past $2.2 billion with reissues. Leomania became an actual term that newspapers used. Teenage girls were fainting at his appearances. But here's what matters most. DiCaprio could have spent the next decade playing variations of Jack Dawson and Printed Money. Instead, he took a hard left turn that nobody saw coming. Performance number 4 proved DiCaprio wasn't interested in easy choices. In 2002's Catch Me If You Can, directed by Steven Spielberg, he played teenage con artist Frank Abagnale Jr., showing off breezy comic timing and shapeshifter poise. He's both showman and scared kid, sliding between personas like a jet pilot, doctor, and lawyer, with sleight-of-hand charisma that never hides the bruised core. Tom Hanks plays the FBI agent chasing him, and their cat-and-mouse dynamic crackles with energy. The film earned over $350 million worldwide and got DiCaprio a Golden Globe nomination. But more importantly, it showed he could do comedy, vulnerability, and charm without relying on romantic lead status. In Frank's phone calls home, in the way his confidence flickers when he's not performing for a mark, you can see DiCaprio exploring vulnerability in a new key, lighter, more playful, but still emotionally precise. Moving to performance number 5, we reach DiCaprio's first collaboration with Martin Scorsese in The Aviator. Playing Howard Hughes across 2 turbulent decades meant portraying genius, madness, and everything in between. This wasn't about being likable anymore, it was about excavating the truth of a complicated man. DiCaprio spent months researching obsessive-compulsive disorder, studying footage of Hughes, learning to fly planes. You can track Hughes's mental deterioration through DiCaprio's body language alone. The way his shoulders tighten, how his hands start repeating motions, the moment his eyes stop focusing on the person in front of him and retreat somewhere internal. The film earned 11 Oscar nominations, won 5, and DiCaprio took home the Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Drama. It also proved the Scorsese-DiCaprio partnership could deliver at scale with over $200 million worldwide. DiCaprio later said this was the film where he felt responsible in a whole new way, having developed the project himself. You feel that ownership in every frame. He's not playing Howard Hughes, he's inhabiting him, OCD tics and all. Performance number 6 reunited him with Scorsese for The Departed in 2006. Billy Costigan isn't a larger-than-life historical figure. He's an undercover cop living in constant fear of being discovered. DiCaprio plays him like a man whose nervous system never stops firing. His jaw stays clenched, his voice pitched slightly too high, his eyes scanning every room like a prey animal checking for predators. This isn't the operatic suffering of a tragedy. It's practical, exhausting fear that makes you anxious just watching it. The film exploded at the box office and swept the Oscars, finally winning Scorsese his first Best Director trophy, along with Best Picture. DiCaprio earned a Golden Globe nomination for this role specifically. Critics like Roger Ebert described it as a story of men trying to live public lives that are the radical opposites of their inner realities. DiCaprio proved he could anchor an ensemble of heavyweights, including Jack Nicholson and Matt Damon, without trying to outact anyone. He became the trembling center that held the whole violent universe together. Performance number 7 takes us into the world of dreams with Christopher Nolan's Inception. The film is an engineering marvel of nested realities, but it wouldn't work if Dom Cobb were just an exposition machine. DiCaprio makes Cobb's grief and guilt over his dead wife the ballast that keeps folding cities, and time warps from feeling like technical demonstrations. He plays the strategist as a man permanently out of breath, sprinting ahead of an undertow that has nothing to do with physics. The Academy recognized Inception with 8 nominations and 4 wins. The movie became one of 2010's top global hits, rare for a high-concept original, earning over $800 million worldwide. DiCaprio's centered, wounded performance is the human architecture inside Nolan's maze. Whether sprinting down a snowy mountainside, lurching through zero-gravity corridors, or murmuring to an imagined ghost in a hotel room, he meets the set-piece scale with detailed interiority. At performance number 8, we reach what might be his most unhinged work. Jordan Belfort in The Wolf of Wall Street is 3 hours of controlled chaos. DiCaprio weaponizes his natural charisma to show how easily we can be seduced by confidence and cash. His sales speeches become revivals, his parties become Roman orgies, his drug sequences become slapstick masterpieces. The Quaalude crawl scene alone, where DiCaprio drags his completely numb body downstairs and across a parking lot, reaches a level of physical comedy that borders on silent film genius. The film won him the Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Comedy or Musical and earned him another Oscar nomination. The now iconic chest-thumping chant at lunch was actually borrowed from Matthew McConaughey's warm-up routine and folded into the scene at DiCaprio's urging. Even when he's crawling down steps or frothing through a sales speech, you sense a metronome ticking inside the performance. That's why the movie's satire cuts so deep. It moves at the speed of temptation, but the actor never loses the beat. Performance number 9 finally brought him Oscar gold. Hugh Glass in The Revenant is pure physical storytelling. After a bear attack leaves him near death and his companions abandon him, Glass has to crawl and drag himself 200 miles through frozen wilderness. DiCaprio grunts, gasps, howls, but barely speaks. Every breath clouds in the freezing air. Every movement costs something. His body becomes the text, telling a story of survival that goes beyond words. The filming conditions matched the brutality on screen. Director Alejandro G. Iñárritu and cinematographer Emanuel Lubezki shot only in natural light to capture bone-deep reality. DiCaprio famously chose to eat real raw bison liver when the prop looked fake. The Academy recognized that embodiment with his first Oscar win for Best Actor. The film also took Best Director and Best Cinematography while earning over $530 million globally. After 2 decades of being told he was overdue, he won not for a monologue-heavy tour de force, but for something nearly silent and elemental. Which brings us to performance number 10, perhaps his warmest and most self-aware work. Rick Dalton in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a fading TV cowboy painfully aware of his own limits. Desperate to prove there's still fire in the forge, Tarantino's love letter to late 60s Hollywood gives DiCaprio space to play both the clown and the craftsman. In one scene, Rick melts down in his trailer with comic fury over blown lines. In another, he delivers a virtuoso guest star performance on the set of Lancer, flipping from insecurity to focus the second the camera rolls. The film scored 10 Oscar nominations with DiCaprio nominated for Best Actor while Brad Pitt won Supporting Actor. It crossed $370 million worldwide, reminding studios that star-driven adult films could still draw crowds. When Rick's young co-star tells him his work is the best acting she's ever seen, and he whispers to himself that it was the best acting he's ever done in his whole life, it's both hilarious and heartbreaking. After decades of playing titans, tyrants, and tormented aces, DiCaprio closes the decade with a character who is beautifully, hilariously, just an actor trying to do the work. Looking across these 10 performances, the evolution becomes crystal clear. The fearless teenager who played Arnie Grape chose the harder path at every turn. He survived Titanic's mega fame by chasing collaborators and characters that complicated his image. When blockbusters needed humanity, he gave Inception its wounded heart. When satire needed venom, he made Jordan Belfort irresistible and repulsive in the same breath. And when the industry finally handed him its most coveted statue, it was for a performance that barely spoke. So what do you think defined DiCaprio's evolution most? Was it the physical transformations, the director partnerships, or his willingness to play genuinely unlikable characters? Drop your take in the comments, hit subscribe if you want more deep dives into Hollywood's greatest performers, and remember, the best actors aren't the ones who always play heroes. They're the ones who show us exactly who we really are.